Minasan, konnichiwa. Nico here from the Road to Japan podcast and working title on YouTube. So, I just got back from another appointment this week, and this is not the same as the other quick vid that I did. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a disappointing one because this was completely 100% expected. But essentially, this video here is going to be the beginning of a ongoing series that I'm going to be doing, and it's pretty much about erasing a piece of my past, so to speak. Now that may sound kind of weird because, how does someone do that? But this is actually something that's visible. This is actually something people can see about me. So, if I will take off my sweater here, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is what the appointment was about. Now, obviously, it looks, looks like I, tried to do something terrible or whatever, and it's not. It is not that. But what I did today was I started the journey to get my tattoos removed. This is something I've been thinking about for quite a long time. Pretty much ever since I guess you could say since I started the show, since I started doing the Road to Japan. Mainly because when I researched, 10 plus years ago, when I researched looking at living in Japan, before I even explored anything like, becoming an English teacher or whatever, just living in Japan, just seeing how that would pan out. The research kept continuously telling me that tattoos are, I wouldn't say they're frowned upon. They're probably a lot more easygoing with them today than they were 10 years ago when I was researching it, but nonetheless, it is still, I don't know, socially, I guess, frowned upon. Granted, because I am a foreigner, I am a gaijin, they would be more accepting and understanding of that. But even so, there's still limitations that I would encounter if I went to Japan with my tattoos. The biggest one that I'm aware of, now again, this is just based on my research, so I don't know the extent of it. I don't know if there's more in addition to it, but I know the big one I keep coming across, I should say, is onsens, which are what do they call them? Like hot springs, basically. And the thing is that because you essentially are almost naked, when you're in these hot springs, a lot of them will not allow you to partake if you have visible tattoos. Which, when you're going to an onsen, there's not really a whole lot of room as far as what can actually still get covered up by like a towel or what have you. So that in addition, I'm becoming a teacher. That's the whole plan, is that I'm going to be a teacher someday. And so this is not just strictly for Japan. This is also just thinking long term as far as my career in general. Because while it's probably okay to be a teacher with tattoos, it's likely still going to hinder me. I've had these tattoos for over 10 years now, and I've definitely noticed more prejudice and discrimination as a result of it. Now, I can't say for, with 100% certainty that that's the case, but people have perceived me a lot differently in the last 10 years than before I got my tattoos. Before I got my tattoos, I was just, average guy, whatever. But now it's like I do get looks. I mean, I don't have complete sleeves or anything, which, I mean, after today's appointment is a good thing, which I'll get into. But I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I feel like people definitely treat me differently, and not necessarily in a positive way because of my tattoos. It's weird because like when I first got my tattoos, I got like a lot of positive attention. Maybe it was because they could detect, people could see that it was that the ink was still really fresh. I'm not sure. I don't know, but since then, probably, after a year or two of having them, then I just kind of started to notice, in general, people just, I don't know, they look at me differently. And, with the fact that I'm going to a place where I'm already going to be stared at a lot, just because of the fact that I'm a foreigner, I won't mind that part of it. I won't mind being stared at because I'm a foreigner. But I will mind being stared at, for any other reason, basically. Which, I don't know, maybe that didn't come out right, but I hope you get what I'm saying. So, anyway, long story short is today's the day that I'm starting the process of getting my tattoos removed. So, another reason I wanted to start this series is because when I was researching this, because I've been researching this for at least a good, I don't know, probably a good year and a half or so, and probably in the last, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, I've been doing a lot more hardcore research, just trying to find a place, and I mean, obviously, there's going to just be nothing but sales pitches, wherever you go or consult. And I ended up going to a dermatology clinic, which is usually the type of place that's going to be doing this kind of stuff. So, I mean, they do other things like, like Botox and hair removal and basically a lot of stuff that usually women go for. But a lot of clinics now are also participating in tattoo removal. So, and of course, when you look, when you're shopping around, none of them are going to give you any kind of idea of what it's going to cost. The best you can find usually is maybe here and there they'll give you like an idea, and typically it's not from the clinic itself, which I partially get, but I realize it's also so that they can get you, get your butt in a seat, talking to them so they can sell it on you further. The nice thing about this place that I went to was that they didn't really do that. They sat me down and just kind of told me what the procedure was like, which, I mean, essentially, if you just go to the website for any of these clinics, what they explained to me in the room was what I could have just read on their website, and which I already did. But they didn't push me into it. They said, if you want to set up an appointment in the future to get a treatment, blah, 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 we can do that. But I was mostly there to get, a quote on how much this is going to cost, what it's looking like as far as treatments. So now I showed you that, it's just my forearm right now, but as you can see, I still have, this ink here. The reason for that is A, because of price, and B, because, well, in relation to A, because of the price, I figure I will start with the tattoos that are most often exposed for one reason or another. So, you can't really see it, but I do have two back here. One's, very much above my collar line, and then the other can be hidden with like a collared shirt, but is exposed like right now with my t-shirt and whatnot. And those aren't getting worked on either. But the idea is that because these ones on my forearms are exposed a lot, especially during the summertime, when I'm wearing a lot of t-shirts and stuff, I figure I'll start with these, and then kind of see how it goes, see how well the treatments work, and then if things are looking good, then I will work on the remainder of my arm, and then obviously get the ones on my neck done. Thankfully, I didn't get a lot of ink, mostly because I just didn't have the money for it. Honestly, if I was making the kind of money that I do now at the time I was getting my tattoos, I'd probably have maybe even full sleeves by now, which obviously would have made this a very, very expensive process had things still kind of gone the same way. So, let's, okay. So first off, the price for these. So I had work done. I'm not sure if I've ever really talked about my tattoos, to be honest, aside from mentioning them, but I have one on the inside of my wrist here. They're my little Transformers, Autobot and Decepticon logos, because I'm a big nerd. I mean, I like Transformers. So those were actually the most recent tattoos I got. So this will be a good, this will give me a good idea of seeing as far as how time, because apparently the older the tattoo, the easier in theory it should be to remove, just because the body naturally wants to reject the ink over time, which is why tattoos fade. Essentially, the way they explained this process is that the laser that they use basically speeds up that process. So, with enough treatments, in theory, it'll force the body to completely reject all of the ink that's embedded. Obviously, things like touch-ups. If you get the same tattoo re-inked, to get better color and whatnot, then that's probably going to be a little bit more difficult, which is where the ones on top of my forearm come into play, because those have been touched up at least once, maybe even twice. So it'll be a good experiment with starting with these ones as far as seeing how the laser is going to affect ink based on time and based on touch-ups, and then that'll give me an idea of what to expect as I work on these other ones here. So with the 4 here, and I mean they're relatively small, according to what the woman told me when she was telling me about price and whatnot, is that typically they charge $200 per treatment per tattoo. So when I asked her, because I told her, I said, the goal is going to be all of them to be gone. So she quoted me at saying it'd be $650 per treatment if I was to get everything done in one treatment, which is good. After I thought about it, initially I was obviously like, oh, damn it, this is going to be really expensive, but actually, she was kind of actually throwing me a bone as far as giving me a bit of a discount, because if she was just strictly going with their pricing model, this would have been $800 by itself. But thankfully, the treatment for everything you see here was $300. So it's still spendy. And if we're just sticking with that math, then that should mean that these other ones and the neck hopefully will equate to $350 per treatment. And she said also that it could be as many as 8 to 10 treatments before complete removal is achieved. So that's where it really, really gets pricey. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, let's just go with these ones here. So, let's say it's the max, 10 treatments. That's going to be $3,000 just to get these removed. But, you know, at the same time, this is kind of sticking with my motto the whole time I've been doing this show, is that nothing is going to stand in the way of my goals. I'm, you know, and I mean, when you think about it, it's just money. It's just money, time, and a bit of pain. In this particular scenario. So yeah, it was, you know, I'm not gonna let something like a $300 bill get in the way of that. I will figure out a way to pay for it. That's not gonna be the issue. The more concerning issue is that if somehow I'm able to stick with this timeline of wanting to graduate by next spring, that could possibly put me in Japan as soon as in the summertime. Because my understanding is that's around when the school year starts. So, you know, if I were to get hired and whatnot, then that would happen probably around like July or August. So, I mean, that's the time frame I'm looking at. And when I had the treatment done today, they said it was a minimum of 8 weeks that I had to wait until another treatment could be done. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't overlap. So, you know, follow along with me here. I have, you know, these other tattoos, you know, on my neck and my other forearms. I could essentially do kind of a leapfrogging deal where, you know, essentially when I had enough to pay for it, then I could go in again to get these treated while these were still healing. Because, I mean, that's the main reason why I have to wait 8 weeks, is to allow, you know, good, complete healing. Which that's actually just something I thought of on the fly. So it's basically just a matter of scraping up enough money to get these treatments going. Which, you know, I had decided, the reason that I am starting to do it around right now is because I was planning on basically putting my tax return towards paying for this, paying for these tattoos to get removed, or at least contributing a significant chunk to paying for this, because I don't think my tax return is going to fully be able to pay for it, but we'll have to see. I mean, maybe I'll get lucky and it'll only take, you know, 3 or 4 treatments and then it'll be totally done. I don't know. We'll, you know, have to wait and see. So, let's see. What else did I want to mention? Oh, yeah, the process itself. So, the actual process of doing this treatment was only maybe 20 minutes, if that. I don't even know if it was 20 minutes. I don't know if you can hear that. It's really windy today, so the mic might be picking up some of the freakishly horrendous wind that's blowing outside. Thankfully, it's a warm day, though, so, you know, at least it's not a ice-cold breeze. But anyway, the process itself is that they clean the surface. I don't know if it's with alcohol. It's with something. They just kind of, you know, swab the surface real quick. And then they take this laser. I mean, I'm not going to describe everything in intricate detail, but, you know, if you want, you can just look up videos on, like, YouTube or whatever, or just Google, you know, tattoo removal, and a lot of times they'll have some videos associated with the actual process of what it looks like. But yeah, the process takes roughly 20 minutes. They had to go... They had to do two different lasers had to be used. I mean, it's the same laser, but they have to, like, calibrate it to do different things. So the first go was to target all the black ink on my arms, and then the second go was to target any of the color. Well, the black ink targeted also any of the blues and purples that I had, but they had to change it to go after the reds. Because thankfully these don't have like a lot of variety in color, so at least that can kind of help streamline the process. But I'll tell you, it's a really weird feeling when the process itself is being done, because if you don't know what's actually going on, it's essentially a laser that's going into your skin, finding the ink particles and breaking them up, and basically dispersing them so that your body can then flush them out. And this is where it has to be a series of treatments, because you could have a large particle and then you break it up and it'll break up into smaller particles, but they're still too big to get rejected right away. So then they come in for another treatment, break those particles up into smaller particles, and so on and so forth, until you're essentially cleansed, that there's no more ink in your body. But it's a strange feeling, because it feels like because it's a series of I don't even know what you call it, like laser flashes or something. And it sounds like kind of like this harsh ticking every time the laser goes off. So it's basically like tick 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 as it's following along. And the interesting thing is that the laser only targets the ink. So if the laser was just going over my hand or any other part of my body that didn't have any tattoo ink, it wouldn't do anything, essentially. I'm sure it probably wouldn't be good to do that continuously, but what's interesting is that as you're watching this get done, you're literally watching it only target the ink, so it still looks like it is finely tuned to create this outline of where it's doing its work. But it feels kind of like a little tiny grenade of needles exploding in my skin. That's the best way I can describe it, because it's not like a piercing pain, which if any of you have gotten tattoos, you know what that feels like. As far as the needle repeatedly jamming into your skin to bury the ink. The laser doesn't feel like that. It almost feels sort of like a reverse, like it's trying to explode from the outside, or from the inside, I should say. It's a weird feeling, but yeah, and afterwards, it basically felt like my arms were on fire, which is totally expected. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is similar to when man, it's really howling out there. When someone gets a tattoo, because it effectively works kind of like a sunburn, as far as how the healing process works. So it feels like burning. You might deal. They told me I might have blisters forming, things like that. And I mean, afterwards you just got to take care of it to obviously prevent it from scarring. So I essentially am just gonna treat it the same way I did when I got the tattoos. Just take care of it, keep them clean, which will be difficult given what I do for a living. But they recommended that I keep the bandage on at least 24 hours, which is fine, because while I do have to go to work today, it is Friday, so thankfully I'll probably make that my strategy, is just to have these, when I get these treatments done, to have these appointments on Fridays, just so I can at least have the weekend to do, because usually, at least to me, it seems like, the body for the first few days to a week is when healing is kind of crucial, and then afterwards it's just a matter of, not doing anything crazy to the affected area. So Yeah, I know this isn't really a quick vid per se. I don't even know if I'll call it a quick vid really. But this is the first leg in this segment of my journey to Japan. Oh, one last thing that I have yet to mention is that some of the after effects of this process getting done is that they told me that no hair will grow any longer in those areas, which is fine because I mean, you might not even be able to see it very well. I do have hair on my arms, but it's very, very light colored. It's basically like blonde. I mean, you obviously see my hair is rather light in color. So and my hair is not very thick on my arms either. So I'll probably notice it, but if I'm able to get enough treatments to where the tattoos are completely gone, then walking down the street with a t-shirt, nobody's probably going to notice at least the removal of hair. If anything, they might notice the other after effect, which is that it could cause like a discoloration, they say, which I pretty much expected. I expected this to be sort of like equivalent to skin maybe getting bleached. So I'm hoping that if that's the case, that it'll only be temporary, as in it'll only last a few years, and then my skin will kind of I mean, the human body is really just an amazing piece of work. As far as just how it's able to repair itself. And, my hope will be that eventually it'll kind of, the coloration will sort of blend back in with, the rest of my skin color. I mean, obviously, as you can see, I'm pretty pale, so I don't do a lot of tanning or anything like that, which is, I don't really know why anyone does it. I mean, it's proven that it's not good for you, but for whatever reason, people still want to tan. So, that's not really going to be a concern, but it can be, I think it can be more acceptable to have, discolored skin as opposed to an actual tattoo. And I mean, if anything, people can ask and it can make for an interesting story, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, so that's probably going to do it for this video. The next one that I do in this series, I mean, I'll still do all the other quick vids as things come up and whatnot. But as far as this series goes, dealing with the tattoo removal, I will, if I start that leapfrogging with treatments and whatnot, then I will probably do another one when I start to get these other tattoos worked on, which then should be enough time for these to be at least exposed, so I can kind of show you guys the progress. Just because like nobody really talks about it in detail on the internet. I mean, some people do like before and after photos and things like that, but the other thing is that a lot of times people that get their tattoos removed will not show up for, like, I guess you could say, the final picture to show a true after, because once the tattoo is completely removed, they're done. They don't go back to the clinics, and usually it's the clinics taking these before and after photos. Like the woman did photograph my tattoos before she started the treatment, so it's probably for their research or portfolio or whatever. I don't know. But that's probably going to be the plan. So, if I can swing it, maybe I'll just do one of these videos every 4 weeks. It greatly just depends on affordability. It's just a matter of getting the money. Because once I have the money, then I'm there. Especially if these treatments start to work. But I guess that's going to be it for now. If you have any questions, I will have these videos in like a separate playlist on the YouTube channel. So Hopefully they'll be relatively easy to find, not just for people that watch or listen to my show, but if it's just anyone out there in YouTube land that are curious about tattoo removals, then I will be happy to field any questions to the best of my ability. So for now, that's gonna do it. My name is Nico, and I'll catch you guys next time. Minasan, ganbatte.